So Bishop Tim, tell me, what do you think the impact of the coronavirus is having on religious observance and practice? Now, you have experience not just in the Christian world, of course, but in the whole multi-faith world. And what impact would it have in the long term?
Well, as far as I can see, it's driving a lot of people to explore within themselves what the deepest spiritual truths they can hold on to are. I think we've known over the years that times of crisis make us look more deeply into what we believe to be true. It was often said that there were no atheists in the trenches, and there's some of that spirit around today. Last night I tuned into the live stream from the cathedral here in Bury St Edmunds, where I live, and I saw there were 500 people following the evening office of Compline, the monastic evening office. Well, I've attended that service many times in the past. There's never been anywhere near that number. So people are looking to their faith communities, to their faith traditions, but also to themselves to ask, what can I hold on to here that's going to give me meaning, going to give me a sense of connection, and give me strength? And I have to say, that's as true for me as a bishop in the church as it is for anybody else. What can I really believe in a time when everything is being tested? And that, I think, is the pattern for many, many people.
So do you think it's changing our understanding of community?
I think it's reminding us that we are essentially communal animals, that whether we're extroverts or introverts, we grow and find who we are in relationship. And many people have said, but it's so now obviously true, that in order to do that, we need each other. We need our neighbours, we need our local communities, we need colleagues at work, we need, above all, our families and our friends. I have found telephone calls coming from people with whom I've had no close connection for a year or two. People who are just picking up the phone, asking how I am and reconnecting. I have a sense that's going on everywhere. And I hope, although the world we're going to emerge into will be in many ways a very different place, that some of this deep need for connection will endure and begin to change the quality of our common life.
Isn't there some irony in the fact that we have to be isolated, self-isolated, to discover what it means to be connected to one another?
Absolutely. And I was reading a bit, about Terry Waite, who many years ago was the Archbishop of Canterbury's advisor, locked up in Beirut as a hostage all those years ago, chained to a radiator, discovering and still living 25 years later with that deep discovery of need for connection. Even in these times, we're not going through anything as severe as he experienced, but we are having our own version of that. And it's a salutary reminder of our need for each other. And I have actually got to know my neighbours in the street where I live better in the last month than I had in the 4 years before. I say that penitentially.
What about its implications for Easter, Tim? I mean, it is a time of reflection, of acknowledging one's own failings, of celebrating the Christ event for Christians. What does Easter mean for you during this period?
The Easter story is such a telling story for Christians, but in some ways symbolically for others as well. On Easter morning, we read the account of the first disciples of Jesus making their way to where they expected to find a dead body in a tomb to anoint the body according to the tradition. And the Gospels tell us that what they found was an absence rather than a presence. It was in that absence, that message, he's not here, he is risen, that they begin to discover that all the disappointment, all the destruction, all the fear of Holy Week and the public execution of the one they were following didn't have the last word, that beyond all that sadness, beyond all that loss, there was the beginning of something new. And that was the transformational experience for the first disciples. The telling phrase, since you ask what it means for me, was the phrase of the angel to the first disciples, where he says, he's not here, he is risen, he is going before you into Galilee. I've thought a lot about in what way does the risen Christ go before us into whatever world we're going to emerge into? In what way might we be guided to value relationships more deeply, to build community with greater resilience, to see the value in those who, on the whole, we've neglected and indeed despised? If we manage to do some of that, I will see evidence as a Christian of resurrection in the days ahead.
That's a very powerful image, and that sense of resurrection, that sense of hope, that sense of moving forward. And I suppose in the world that we live in of belief and no belief, of the multi-faith society, the question is, how do we do that together? Now, it surely is one small step at a time. The rabbis, for example, talk about one mitzvah, one good deed leads to one more good deed. And I'm sure there's an equivalent both in many faith traditions. But what advice do you have for those of us who are thinking, how do we make sure that we hold on to this lesson? Because the human condition is such that you return to type so easily, don't you? How do we hold on and move forward and make sure that we learn this lesson? Because a plague like this knows no boundaries of ethnicity, of gender, of religion, of nationality.
Such an important question. As you ask it, Ed, two or three things come into my mind. The first is, well, we're all in our different traditions driven to prayer at the moment. And in learning more deeply to pray, I think we will be brought more closely together as a result of this experience. The second thing I've very much been struck by is that friends of mine from my days as Bishop of Leicester, from the Sikh and Hindu and Muslim community, have been in touch, asking me how I am and how I'm getting on. And we've corresponded about that. This is a shared experience that transcends faith boundaries. And I think in the days ahead, it's talking about our experience of isolation, which will be a common resource for deepening our understanding of one another and of the way our faith has been deepened through this. There is one third dimension to this I think we need to notice. This dreadful experience, this plague that's sweeping the globe in a way that we've not known anything like this in our lifetimes, might be but the foretaste of something much more serious if we don't learn together as a human race to protect our planet from the ravages of climate change. I say that not to load anxiety or foreboding on a difficult situation, but if as faith communities we can learn through this, that working together is the great challenge to which God is calling us, then perhaps we can be the spiritual resource for a world which needs to come together in a whole new way.
Bishop Tim Stevens, thank you very much.